that Mother Tanetta and others have made known to us, entitled The Message in the Water. You can find that book. I can't recall the author's name, a Japanese author. And he shows that water is very sensitive. That if you speak words over water, it changes the crystalline characteristics of the water. And he developed a technique for taking photographs of water crystals. So that if a heated argument takes place in the presence of that water, then when you look at those crystals will be very ugly and deformed. But if words of love and compassion are spoken over the water, or a prayer, good words spoken in the presence of that water, then when you look at the crystals this time, then they are very beautiful, light-filled crystals. And then the water has the characteristic that it will impart that spirit that is in it into other bodies of water. And people have done experiments to show that if you just took a little bit of water that has been, shall we say, blessed in that way, then that water will clean up polluted water. If you put a little of it in a polluted body, then that crystalline structure in that blessed water has power to reform and to improve the quality of the other water. It stores information. It stores energy.
Right.
It stores spirit. So we had the water there during the dialogue circles, so that even if the recorders who were writing down the deliberative dialogue, if they got it wrong, if the reports that were generated from those circles, look at this. See, this is to be given to the ministries. These are the 30 questions or the problems of the nation that were given with their solutions. So in this book are brief reports of solutions to all those problems. For example, circle number 6 had a problem. The measures of progress that local mosques and study groups are held accountable to are very limited. Acceptance, charity, and the final call newspaper sales are not enough alone. What are the important measures of progress for the nation? See? We don't actually have a way of measuring our own progress. Part of the problem is when sometimes people feel like we're not making progress. Well, you're not making, you may be making progress, but if you don't have a method for measuring it, you won't know it.
Right.
And you feel like you didn't do anything when in fact you did a lot. So then they have their report of how to handle that problem, what to do about it, so on and so forth, for 30 problems that face the nation.
Yes, sir.
So the spirit that produced these solutions emerged out of the living creatures that were in the wheels of dialogue that were within the wheel. And also, that spirit, if you will, is in the water, which we have preserved. Enough of that. I wanted to take a look at the mathematical science that governs dialogue But in fact, the same mathematical science governs life itself. Living creatures in a wheel, within a wheel, operate according to definite scientific, mathematical, geometric laws. But now most of us, we don't study our own life. We just know that we're alive. We don't actually seek to understand why we're alive, what makes us alive. We know the difference between a live body and a dead body. And so we are drawn to one and we shy away from the other. When we come into an assembly, we know what the level of life is when we walk in the room.
Right.
We feel the spirit, and we can measure, even though sometimes we lie to ourselves about what we measure. See, that's a no good scientist.
Right.
See, no good scientists, they fudge their results. They don't take it the way it actually is. They come into the scientific process with a preconceived idea, and they think that they're going to rearrange the facts to make it correspond to their preconceived idea. So this is how some of the amateur scientists work in the dialogue circle. They come into the dialogue not with an open mind, but they come with a preconceived idea of the way they think it's supposed to be. And then they take the process of dialogue as though it's some kind of a tool to be manipulated by them, to make it come out to serve whatever their will is. But of course, the purpose of the conference and the purpose of dialogue is not any such dishonest, egotistical kind of work. The purpose of dialogue is to arrive at a higher understanding of truth. And within the group, to manage, if possible, to come to a consensus on truth. And usually for a group that is involved in dialogue, they're in the dialogue because there's some problem, there's some question, there's some misunderstanding, there's some trouble among them, and they are seeking a solution to their trouble or to their problem or that which is impeding progress. And so they need to find a higher level of understanding of the principles of truth in order to arrive at a solution. And then if they can come to consensus on that truth that they discover through dialogue, then they can make a decision to take action. The point of the action being to solve the problem.
Right.
Well now, what's the good of having a book full of solutions if you don't have consensus? Now each circle arrived at consensus, and that's what you'll see written in this book. It talks about the consensus that they arrived at. But that was the consensus of a small group. And now the book is given to a larger group. The book is given to a group that is the entire nation of Islam. So therefore, through a similar dialogue process, we've got to digest the entire book as a nation so that we arrive at a national consensus about the solutions that are in this book. Are you following what I'm saying? Yes. Now the interesting thing about truth is that truth is what's called scalable. scalable. In other words, scale has to do with different sizes. So you don't need to taste the entire Pacific Ocean to find out that it's salty. It's scalable. The saltiness is scalable. You can find out how salty it is just by one little drop, or even with a micro drop. It doesn't matter how big or small the quantity of water is from the ocean, it's all going to reflect the truth that it's salty. You following what I'm saying? Yes. So it means that if a little group gets together and they tackle a national problem, it's not the problem of that little group that tackled it. Right. It's the problem of the entire nation. But if that little group tackles it, and they bring with them to the dialogue the identity of the group, and then they follow the procedure as it should be followed, then that little group will come to a consensus. And if it's a true consensus, it actually reflects that there is a consensus throughout the entire nation. Although that needs to be tested and proved to be true. Are you following what I'm saying? Yes, sir. See, these are very important principles. Truth is scalable all the way down to the individual. See, this is what sometimes we have difficulty recognizing in ourselves and in one another. The individual human being is the unit of truth. You are the moral unit. You cannot produce an instrument that is more accurate at determining truth than the human being in the image and likeness of God. That is your very nature. That is the essence of your work and your purpose in creation, is to discover and uncover the principles of truth that undergird the heavens and the earth. For Allah says, I have created the heavens and the earth with nothing but truth. And it is the human being in the image and likeness of God that is able to perceive and to discern and to express the truth. That's who you are. That is your mission. That is your purpose. To discern truth and then express it, speak it, pick it up, and use the principles of truth to continue the creation and the expansion of the creation. What else would you think your purpose is? You don't have any other purpose. You weren't created to tell lies, to do wrong. You were given a nature made by Allah to do right and to think right. And you're doing wrong when you think other than that of yourself. As though somehow you were created to do wrong. Or that your brains don't work right. Or you disrespect one another because you think something's wrong with her brains. Or his brain. When in fact you have the self-same brains that were developed by the first God. You didn't hear what I said. You act like the first God had bigger brains than yours. No, he didn't. You got the exact same model. What the issue is, what are you doing with yours? Besides admiring what he did with his. So you got to wake yourself up to yourself. Because sometimes, you're listening to somebody else sing because they sing so beautifully. You just love to hear them sing. And because you spend all your time listening to somebody else sing, you never discover the fact that you can sing. I always like to tell these Miles Davis stories. They asked Miles Davis one time what he thought about the young musicians that were coming up. He said he didn't like none of them. When Miles was like that, he would tell you the truth. Why you don't like them, Miles? Because they all sound the same. Why do you think that is? They have too many records. What do you mean, Miles? They spend all their time listening to records instead of playing. So when we came up, we had a few records. The figure of the Enneagram in the dialogue, and in one of the videotapes, I talked about that when we did the dialogue session, the Nation of Islam, the next 50 years. We used the dynamics of the Enneagram to guide that dialogue in a very powerful way. You don't have to use it. See all those lines that connect the 9 points around the circle? See, any point will connect with any other point. Those are directions that can be taken. You could take any of them. You could go from any point to any point you want to. But you would not necessarily end up with what you desire. I like the way Brother Michael puts it in his management. You're only as good as your results. You can talk all the stuff you want to talk about, how you want to do this, go that way, this, okay, go ahead, talk that. But at the end of the day, what are your results? And you're no better than the results that you get. So generally speaking, in any endeavor, there are many approaches. But there's one that's best, that actually works best, that is reliable and reproducible. And that's what the Enneagram gives us. And the Enneagram, or the word Enneagram, is a Greek word. And it just means a 9-sided figure. See? E-N-N. Well, let me write it. You're in trouble when you ask me to spell something. Enneagram. Now the Arabic is different than that. The Arabic is Waj Allah. And Waj Allah translates, sometimes it's the face of Allah. Or sometimes, more commonly, is translated the presence of Allah. So the Enneagram, so-called, is the symbol of the presence of God. And it can be used to represent any living system in the universe. As a matter of fact, it must be used to demonstrate complete understanding of any living system in the universe. And any living system in the universe is a living system in the universe because of the presence of Allah within it. See, you are a living system in the universe, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
But what allows you to be a living system in the universe? It is the presence of God within you. if the Spirit of God were not alive in you, you would be dead material. But you're not. When you do a chemical analysis of a human being, all that you find is so much water, so much iron, so much calcium, so much phosphorus, so much potassium, so much copper, other materials. And if you pile it up there on the table, that's all you would have is copper and iron and zinc and calcium and sodium and potassium. You would not have a living human being. But under the law of synergy, which we introduced at the conference, the whole is more than the mere sum of the parts. So you can add all the calcium and potassium and water and whatnot that you want. That does not become a line except under the law of synergy, which introduces the presence of divine. See, the Bible says that when Allah breathed into Adam, he became a living soul. All of the parts were there, but he did not become a living soul until the presence of God was there. The Spirit of God was there. And then you get a synergetic effect, which makes the whole more than just the mere parts that you can see. There's an invisible factor that you can't see that makes the parts more. That occurs in dialogue, where you come with your point of view, your ideas. I come with mine. Everybody comes with theirs. And if you look at what those ideas are, they don't look like much. But in the process of dialogue with the presence of Allah in the midst, then those mere ideas that don't even seem to be worth all that much, the law of synergy takes over as something greater than those parts emerges. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So, could I see the next one? So the red triangle is highlighted among all those other lines. And it gives you the 3 points: identity, relationship, and information. In any living system, you will have these 3 points as the reference points, or the dominant points that make this living system capable of self-assembly. If it's alive, it puts itself together. If you have a living plant, you don't put it together. You plant the seed, but the plant grows itself. You conceive a child, but you don't grow the child. The child grows itself. It puts itself together, which is a reflection of the original God who is self-created. He put himself together. He built himself up out of the material that was in the darkness. Well, that's what you must do. That's what you have done. That's how you got to the point where you are right now. You put yourself together. So if there's something about yourself right now that you don't like, well, who did it? You did. On the other hand, if there's greatness about you, wonderful things about you, give yourself credit. You did that too. Quit giving the credit to somebody else. Like they made you. They didn't make you. You made yourself. Doesn't mean we didn't get assistance from our parents. If they hadn't fed you, if they hadn't sheltered you and clothed you and taught you this and exposed you to that, you wouldn't have been what you are today. I'm not denying that there's help, but The primary force and power that is operating is from within yourself. That's why the scripture says, he that is within you is greater than he that is in the world. You're not going to run into a force and a power that's out here in the universe someplace that is greater than the force and power that is within yourself. Doesn't mean there aren't other forces and powers, but you're greater than all of them because you're God. If a reluctant God, nonetheless, a God. And so, the God raised up a messenger among you to remind you of who you are. I say remind you of who you are because when you first heard the teachings, you knew it was true, not from what you heard outside, but you bore witness to it from within yourself.
Yes, sir. Good teaching.
That's why nobody can mess over you so much that it actually runs you away. Because it ain't about what somebody is doing outside of yourself. No. It's about you yourself, within yourself. But now, we got to be straight about these three factors. See, why have I spent so much time in many different ways emphasizing the fact that you are a God? It's because point 0 up there remains 0 until you get that straight. That's your identity. That's why it's good the minister took away your false identity as a minister and a captain and a secretary. That's your false identity.
Come on.
This world calls us everything but a child of God. Put a false identity on us. Call us Negroes and all kinds of names. That's not your identity. Your identity is God. Right. Your identity is Muslim.
Yes, sir.
Your identity is one of the righteous. Your true identity is the original man, the original woman, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth. That's your true identity. Yes, sir. But if you operate off of another identity, because it's safer, so you might not like to operate off of your true identity, which is God, because God has a lot of responsibility. Right.
Come on. Hit the nail on the head.
So since I don't want all those responsibilities, then I'll deny that I'm God.
Right.
So nobody will expect anything of me. And I can just skip through life without having to be accountable. But no, you can't escape. So you got to be clear about who you are. That's what identity means. And that's the greatest thing that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught. He taught you the knowledge of yourself and others. Everybody ain't God, but you are. Go ahead. And in order to deal with those others, he gave us their true identity. They're really devils. By nature. Can't get out of it.
Yes, sir.
Then this point of relationship. Yeah, you're God, but you ain't here by yourself. Come on. You're in a relationship with others who are also gods. So now, what kind of relationships do you have one with the other? See, in our nation, what kind of relationships do we have as brothers and sisters? See, if we had real good relationships that nourished one another, that uplifted and sustained one another, you see, then we would have what would be called a true brotherhood. And as the scripture says, you will know that you have passed from death into life when you learn to love the brotherhood.
Sir, come on.
But when we got these old nasty relationships, disrespectful relationships, where one lording it over others, and someone groveling, thinking that that's their proper way to relate to someone else, not standing up for themselves as they should, where you got big eyes and little U's, where you have dishonest people who take advantage of other people, who use power and authority to steal from other people, to hold other people in check, to suppress their natural talents and gifts so they can't shine forth as a God. When you got those kinds of funky relationships, then you ain't got no true brotherhood. You don't have a true sisterhood. You're making a mockery of brotherhood and sisterhood under those circumstances. It is the principles of freedom, justice, and equality that must govern any relationship. See, that's what you call a society or a nation of men and women. All those relationships that govern how they live with one another, how they get along or don't get along with one another. And the better the relationships are, then it strengthens the identity. See, if I'm in a real strong, loving relationship with another God, that enhances my God power. And vice versa. Now over here is information or knowledge. See, none of this means anything if there's no information or knowledge that is available. You have to know something. You might have the nature of God, but if you don't have the knowledge of God, then you're not God. Right. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught that subject, the knowledge of God Himself. Teaching you what you need to know in order to be God. Showing you that God is not selfish. If God was selfish, He would never give you the secret to Himself. If God is willing to share the secret knowledge of Himself with you and I, so we can equal ourselves up to the other gods that are in the circle of the gods. Well then, what is it that He would hold back then? If He's willing to give that, then there's nothing that He's holding back. Right. Right. So, these 3 points. See, this is the key to life. That if you want to have life yourself as an individual, you were given your individual goals and work plans at the conference. And if you download this notebook, you'll see the pages in here that are developed or that are devoted to the development of your individual plan of how you're going to improve yourself and work on yourself. But you won't be successful if you aren't clear about who you are and your relationships and the information that you need in order to accomplish your goal. That's what will bring you alive as an individual. How about the moms? Same thing. You have to know that you are a mom. What do you think you are? You think you're some black power group?
Come on, Doc.
You think you're some version of the mafia? You think you're a gangster? You're ashamed of being a Muslim?
Come on, sir. Sir.
You want to be bad? You don't even want to dress like a Muslim. You don't want to eat like a Muslim. Come on. Because you got a problem with your identity.
Come on now.
You aren't clear about who and what you are. And then you're in wrong relationships with one another.
That's right.
That they're not honest and truthful and justifiable relationships that are respectful and self-respecting.
That's right.
You want to be a coward. So then you won't stand up to people. In the circles, that one time we had an exercise called confront, where I asked everybody, confront everybody else that's in your circle. Well, confront doesn't mean to get angry or to be mean or anything like that. All confront means is you just be yourself. Just be relaxed in the space that you occupy. Just be comfortable within yourself. And don't be afraid to open your eyes and look and see what is in front of you. And look and see who's in front of you without flinching. Don't get no itch or don't start scratching where you don't itch. Don't get no eyelid that starts fluttering. Get some vein on the side of your head that starts pounding. Why? Because you're looking at somebody? Who are they and who are you that all that got to take place within you? Your heart skip a beat because you're looking at another God like yourself. Your stomach tie itself up in knots because you're in the presence of another God like yourself. Now, confront just means to be yourself. Just to be at ease and occupy the space that you occupy. And you don't back up and you don't flinch. Just be where you are. Be yourself. And let others be themselves. So the mosque, you see, when we did circles, we did, some people call it a meditation. And then one brother, he accused me of hypnotizing people. But it wasn't that at all. I just said some words to the circles that would create a group identity. See, if you're having dialogue within your own head, then it's enough for you just to identify who you are as an individual. But the dialogue is going off inside your head. And that's why it was easier to do your individual work plans than to do it in a group. When you get in a group now, if you've got individual identities coming together, well, the dialogue is going to be real rocky. But it's easier if you can establish a group identity. That I'm coming to the dialogue not as an individual person, but I'm coming as a member of a group. Or to say it another way, I'm coming as a member of a team. Yes, sir. If you got a sports team, and you got all these superstars, and they think they are the team, well, that's going to be a losing team. Yes, all right. They might be a superstar, all right, but the team is going to lose. All right. They're not going to win the championship. But when the Kobe Bryant of the world can bring their ego down and take it out of there, all right, and adopt a team identity, then the team can win. Yes. Right. So when you got a lot of individual egos coming into a dialogue and the ego is trying to dominate the group, then you don't have no real dialogue. It's impossible. But you've got to subordinate the individual ego and take on the identity of the group. So if it's a mosque dialogue, then everybody got to come with the identity. I am a member of this mosque team. Right. I'm not here on my own. I'm here representing the mosque. I, to a certain extent, am the mosque. Right, right. But so is my brother, so is my sister. We are all here members of the mosque, and therefore we have to learn to think and work, breathe as one. In order for that to be the case, we have to have our identity straight. That's what we are. We are a mosque, and it's one for all and all for one.
Yes. Good.
See, that's what that meditation was for. To bring in alignment in the group. And of course, we are not just trying to align with one another in the group, but we're trying to align our minds with the mind of Master Fawad Muhammad. Why is that necessary? Can I see the next slide? Because right next to that identity is the one. You see that? What does it say? Intention. In other words, once you get your identity straight, then the next thing that you got to do is be clear about your intention. Well, in the case of the Nation of Islam, it's not our intention that counts. Making his word bond means that it's his intention that counts.
That's right.
So that's why the alignment. See, because if you are working your own purpose, I think I could hustle the Nation of Islam and get rich. See, that's your individual purpose, perhaps.
Come on.
Or I can't be nothing in the world, but if I come in the Nation of Islam, they'll make me a captain. After I can get them to make me the secretary. And then I'll be over all these, they won't even call them brothers and sisters. Because your intention won't let you call them that. And that rotten intention of yours ruins the relationships. Because remember that first slide, all of the points are connected. So if you ain't got the right identity and you don't have the right intention, then it's going to poison all the other points. Now, at number 2, we have the issues. The issues here means those things that cause tension and dis-ease. Problems, in other words. Situations that need some attention. And then the relationships. And then in position number 4, you have principles and standards. The rules. The regulations. The policies that govern the activity of the mosque or the organization. Or really, it could be the individual. Remember, truth is scalable. So everything that we're saying in principle concerning an organization, it applies to the individual. It applies to the mosque. It applies to the whole nation. It applies to the whole world. Same principles. So these are tools to think with so that you can understand what's going on. And it's how you can discover what's wrong. So that when there's something that's not right, you know where to look. So when I came in the room and I looked, something was wrong. And I think I discovered part of what was wrong. It was the identity issue. But not by itself. There are relationship issues here.
Yes, sir.
And that's what leads to unhappiness. Unhealthy relationships make you sad or angry or stressed out. And then point number 5 is the work, which is actually what you're doing at any given moment in time. The work is to be thought of in the present tense. It's what you do. And then, of course, the point of information. See, restrictions on information lead to restrictions in relationships and a contraction in identity. So one of the things that contributed to the joy of the conference was all the information.
Yes, sir.
Everything was given free to everybody. All of the reports, all of the documents, all of the presentations, the PowerPoints, everything that everybody contributed to the conference was downloaded on flash drives. So you walk away from the conference, you got everything. There was nothing that was held back. And when you have all of the information, then that improves your relationship, that enhances your identity. And then that takes you to the next point at 7. What are you going to do with more information? You're going to learn. You're going to learn what? You're going to learn to do the work better. You're going to learn from past mistakes. And then point number 8 is the structure or the context in which the work is being done. When we say structure, mostly what we mean is the internal structure of the person or the internal structure of the organization or the nation. The context means the outside world, because you're not in the world by yourself. So what's the context in which you as an individual are working? What is the context in which mosque number 4 or any mosque exists? What's the nature of the city in which you are? What's going on around you that is affecting what you do? So on and so forth. And then you're back to identity. There's actually a mistake on the slide, because when you go through all of those other 8 points, starting from identity as a 0, can you go back? See, in the beginning, the identity is 0. Now go forward. But when you come back through all of the points, now you have added something to your identity. Now the 0 has become 9. Now, duplicate for me. What is a triangle? What's the principle in the triangle?
All squares are equal, all sides are equal.
Well, that's the characteristic of the triangle, but I said that the triangle in this symbol represented...
Stabilizing factor?
That's a stabilizing factor. Life. And what principle of life? The self-assembly principle of life. Life builds itself. Life puts itself together. So a lot of people, they came up to me at the conference and said, "You must be tired. All this work that you all did to put this together." I'm tired. Or it must have been a lot of stress. It wasn't a lot of stress. Practically no stress. Why? Because when you operate according to the correct principles, it puts itself together. When you find yourself working hard that you got to do everything and put everything in its place or otherwise it won't be there, you are operating according to wrong principles. And that's why you're stressed out and bugged out. You don't understand this principle. Almost nobody does. But now you do. Get straight on your identity. Get the relationship straight in the group. Share the information. And then watch out. The people themselves will organize themselves into what they need to be in order to do the work. And then in order for the work to actually get done, allow it to go according to the mathematical principle of pi. When you got the 3 straight, then the sequence of pi is 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. So the work is not done around the periphery of the circle. The work is done internally, 1 to 4 to 2 to 8 to 5 to 7 and then back to 1. And every time one cycle goes like that, 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, it enhances the identity. It improves the relationship. It increases the information. Well, if the information is increasing and the relationship are enhanced and the identity is enhanced, what has happened to the triangle? It's stronger, but what? It's bigger. It expands. See, let's be realistic here now. We sound silly when we talk about building the 9 ministries. When in order to fully staff one ministry at the executive level, you have 9 executive positions. So 9 ministries would mean that you would have 81 executive positions to staff all 9, plus the spiritual ministry. So you're talking about